Educational Communications and this station present Environmental Directions with Nancy Pearlman. On this series, we explore the effects of human influence on the Earth's ecosystems and discuss solutions to environmental problems which affect the quality of life on this planet. Environmental Directions gives you the kind of information you need to help you participate in decisions impacting your community, the nation, and the world. Now, here's your host, Nancy Pearlman.
Hello. For the next half hour, we're going to be talking about water, the water cycle, and atmospheric water generation with my guest, Jeffrey Szur. He is the Chief Operating Officer with Altitude Water. He is also an honoree for Best Invention with the South Florida Inventors Association. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Oh, it's such an honor to be interviewed by you, Nancy. Such a pioneer in the environmental movement. It really is an honor, and thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. And you are a pioneer in creating water sources for people in all sorts of places around the world, and also with working with many charities and disaster relief programs. And we'll be talking in more detail about that. But let's begin with the very simple concept of water. I am used to turning on the tap, getting water, and I've heard that the water comes from the mountains into the aqueduct and into the pipes into my home. And yet, you are involved in creating and generating water from the atmosphere. How does that work?
You're absolutely correct. When we grew up, I was used to drinking water out of a hose, a garden hose. And as we grew up and as chemicals started contaminating the groundwater, we looked at where can we get a pure source of water. So if you look at the water cycle, and the incredible aspects of water is that we have the same amount of water on this earth as when it was formed. But it goes through different cycles, whether it's in the groundwater, whether it's through evaporation, condensation, and the properties of water, it really cleans itself. So anytime that water goes from a gas form, which is humidity, to a liquid form, which is our drinking water, it's pure. If you think about how we distill water, you boil it, you have steam, you capture steam, and you bring it back down to a drinking water. Well, we're basically tapping into an untapped reservoir that is all around us. The U.S. Geological Society says that there's over 3.8 quadrillion gallons of water in our atmosphere. And interesting, it's also humidity is a greenhouse gas. So the fact that we're capturing that humidity is we're capturing the purest source of water. And a lot of people look at me and say, well, how is that possible? And I say, well, where is most of our evaporation come from? Of course, the ocean. And have we ever had salt rain? No, because when water goes from that liquid form and goes to a gas form and evaporates, it leaves all the salt. It leaves whatever's in it behind and just takes up water. So what our machines do in a very economical and technologically advanced way is capture that water through condensation, and then anytime you store water, you have to worry about bacteria and things like that growing in it. So we have a patented process using ozone, which is one of the most powerful water purifiers in the world, so much more, about 1,000 times more powerful than chlorine, and it's natural, O3. What we like to say at Altitude Water is we make water with technology licensed from Mother Nature. And I think we'll all agree that the earth is incredible in how it maintains itself. We're the ones as people that are the ones that mess it up. What we're trying to do is capture the purest water and provide it to people where it is the purest, safest drinking water.
We definitely want clean, pure water. We know our air has been polluted, our land has been polluted, water has been polluted, and so we want it clean. And yet, does the ozone that you use for the purification when it's stored, is that unhealthy in any way?
Not at all. As a matter of fact, the ozone gas, number one, the ozone protects our planet. If you remember back, we had a hole in the ozone layer.
Yes.
So O3 is a very safe and very natural. It is used primarily in hot tubs, spas, and pools now. So instead of using chemicals, you're seeing a huge growth in the ozone generator market in that field. And so what I like to say is if it can keep a hot tub water safe with all these people getting into it and at 110 degrees, it's so easy for it to keep pure water pure. What we like to say is majority, 99% of the water comes from our groundwater. And how do we do that? Through filtration processes, through UV lights. What all of those filters and lights are trying to take out of groundwater is never in our water. So all we have to do is every 20 minutes cycle a small amount of ozone through the water and do a loop with our water. And the result is not only the purest water, but the most highly oxygenated water, because O3, after 20 minutes, reverts back to oxygen. You're not only drinking the purest water, but the most highly oxygenated water. And the only claim we make with that is your cells will absorb that water just basically through osmosis. So anytime you have oxygen in something, it's going to go across the cell membrane a lot easier. We do have a filter that adds minerals back into the water to raise the pH, because a lot of people want to be drinking alkaline water instead of an acidic water. So we add calcite and magnesium and a couple of other minerals to raise the pH to about an 8.2 to have minerals in our water as well.
Let's compare UV and RO filtration versus ozone in the atmospheric water generation, because there are lots of ways, apparently, to do water purification, many different options, and I really didn't realize there were so many, from tap water, wastewater reuse, rainwater collection, desal. What are all those?
And that's a great question, and it's very important. When I speak at different water shows or organizations, people will say, well, isn't that a competitor of yours? And the water problem is so great and vast right now that we need all of these different technologies, and all the technologies work better in different applications. When you're talking atmospheric water generation, we believe ozone is the best because you're storing it in a machine. So just for an example, if you were going to use RO filtration, which some of our competitors do because we have the patent on ozone, the water goes through the filters, and if it does a great job in taking all the chemicals out, you still have a tube that goes up to where you're going to dispense the water. And that tube is going to grow biofilm. If you see, even the CDC has come out with warnings for dentists on their chair side where they hold the water for your drilling and stuff like that, because those tubes, if it's been a year without cleaning, will grow bacteria, and they see an increase in infection in the mouth. So why ozone and atmospheric water generation is the perfect fit is we have the only self-cleaning machine. So every 20 minutes, our program has a purification cycle where the pump comes on, and in a loop, it will inject ozone into the water through a ventory, which is basically injecting the gas that our corona discharge ozone generator makes the ozone. So ozone, to give a natural explanation, if you're ever in a lightning storm and lightning strikes by you and you have this sweet smell all of a sudden, that's ozone. That's nature making ozone. So it's an electric charge through oxygen, which is O2, which makes ozone, which is O3. And what makes ozone such a powerful water purifier is that third oxygen molecule is known as a radical. And what it will do is it will detach and oxidize anything that's not supposed to be in the water, whether it's viruses, bacteria, even metals, which, again, with our application, we're just trying to keep pure water pure. And then the other thing is with reverse osmosis is you're forcing the water through a tiny membrane. For every gallon that you make of water that's safe to drink out of an RO system, you're wasting 3 gallons of water. There are a couple of advantages on that. And In regards to UV, again, it's inside a machine and you're dealing with water flow. So if the water is going too fast or if there's coloration, the UV light might not be working efficiently and effectively inside of an atmospheric water generator. So 14 years ago, when my father and I started in the atmospheric water generator business, we marketed some of the competitors' machines, and we saw that after a year, the total dissolved solids, which basically just measures anything that will conduct electricity and says that there's something in your water, it doesn't tell you what it is, but it was increasing. And when we did our evaluation, we found it was from the biofilm in the tubing that was going up. So we looked at a different way of keeping the water pure, and 14 years ago we started building our own machines made in a USA product here in Florida using ozone. And we like to say that the sun never sets on one of our machines because we've had them in over 60 countries. It's very, very exciting. But as you know, sometimes being early, like you said, when we were growing up, said you wanted to invest in a bottled water company, you would say, are you crazy? I can just turn the faucet on. But now you see that bottled water is the number one beverage sold in the world, and that's because of the engineer's creed, which is the solution to pollution is dilution. Take all these harmful chemicals, throw it in a big body of water, dilute it down to something that the EPA says is safe to drink, and we continue to do that for decades. Eventually, you can't dilute it as much.
But I hope that people will obtain water from different pieces of equipment that have stored the water so that we don't have to use plastic for bottles. We don't have to have it be unecological and uneconomical in terms of the waste of the plastic bottles. Bottled water is not actually the solution. You provide water in tanks, correct?
That's good. In machines. So that's such a great point, Nancy, and seeing that how you've seen the environmental movement go. So they tried to solve the problem with bottled water, which has now created another environmental catastrophe. We can't look anywhere without a plastic bottle floating in an ocean. There's an island of plastic in our oceans just from disintegrating and from all the pollution. So our machines, you basically secure your water source. You know where your water's coming from. So instead of having to go to the supermarket, carry this 20-pound case of water or however much, because water is 8.33 pounds per gallon, put it in your car, bring it to your house, bring it into your house, have to store it, and repeat the cycle every week. Here you have a machine that is dehumidifying your house, that's purifying your air, and creating a pure water source. So when you say, I only want water in my water, you could be assured that our machine is doing that for you without the plastic waste, without the carbon footprint of having to deliver the cases of bottled water from where it's bottled to the store and then pick it up from the store and bring it home. So those are some of the advantages of being able to have a machine that secures your water source and provides it right in your house, so you can take your beautiful glass and put it in there and know that the purest water is in a glass and that you are safe from any of the contaminants. Because even now we're talking about PFAS chemicals, the forever chemicals from other technologies like nonstick pans. Interesting, the EPA hasn't come up with new chemicals to test in water for 20 years. So no one's really even testing for PFAS chemicals, but they're there. And those are chemicals that you don't get out of your body. They stay just like lead.
I loved learning about your technology, learning about the water cycle. Your website has so many fantastic power presentations, from water, condensation, how it works, to all your wonderful humanitarian projects. And we're going to talk more about that when we return in a moment with my guest, Jeffrey Szur, who is the COO of Altitude Water.
Environmental Directions with Nancy Pearlman continues with further discussion of the world's critical ecological issues. For more information, you may call 310-559-9160 or go to www.ecoprojects.org. Now, Here's Nancy.
I'm speaking with Jeffrey Szur. He is the Chief Operating Officer with Altitude Water. We're talking about water. You generate water. You're not actually making it. As you said earlier, it's always been there on the planet, and it's just constantly being recycled in different ways. I mentioned your website having wonderful presentations. They can go to www.altwater.com. That's ALTDWATER.com.
That is correct.
There you provide interesting graphics and information about the entire water cycle, how to obtain water, the whole concept of different kinds of machines to capture the water in the air. You explain the difference between coil design, airflow, and other factors. And you do it for the non-engineering type person like myself.
We try, absolutely. We love our technology and we love talking about it. So thank you very much for that compliment. We try and break it down to where someone can look and relate it to nature. Again, I keep going back to our beautiful earth that was created. We really believe in just following that lead as closely as we can.
I was impressed by the concept that you have in your company of planet, people, and prosperity, and how you want to assist those in need. And consequently, you have partnered with many humanitarian organizations from Aquavera, Noah's Ark Foundation, Na Mia Ike Ia, Jean-Felicien Gatha Foundation, schools, and many other places. You mentioned working in many different countries, and you are very involved in disaster relief, but you are concerned that the disaster relief industry itself is one of the most egregious carbon footprint models.
It is.
Why do you say that?
I say that because in a disaster, everything is needed immediately, and they aren't concerned with the earth. They're concerned with the immediate need of helping people, which absolutely is so important. Let's get the resources to the people as quickly as possible. The problem is they're so stuck on the standard operating procedure. To them, getting truckloads of bottled water into the disaster area is how they've done it all these years. They know it works, and they don't ever want to risk a new technology that wouldn't be working. So we have been trying to educate the governments, the NGOs, and the groups involved in the disaster relief and saying not only is our technology providing better water and not having the result of plastic bottles all over the disaster site and creating another disaster by trying to get water in there quickly, but if you take our machine and have them, we're working with another nonprofit called footprintproject.org who has been providing solar microgrids for disaster relief all the way from Katrina. What they do is instead of having all these generators that are burning diesel and polluting our air and then also having to get the diesel in there, they're creating solar trailers that will have the panels and the batteries and be able to go in and provide the necessary electrical to charge phones, for lighting, for all the different things that are necessary in a disaster. We, through our help in the Maui wildfires, hooked up with them and really started looking at their concept and adding water to these trailers because of our machines.
And there in Hawaii, you also were involved with the Noah's Ark Foundation and providing a trailer that is also a homeless shelter for those who were affected by the fire. It really takes many different groups and organizations to provide the relief necessary.
Absolutely. We like to say at Altitude Water, teamwork makes the dream work. So Noah's Ark Foundation worked with us and introduced us to Aquavera, which is another nonprofit based in France run by Olivier Namda. But Olivier had the vision of saying that all of these villages need a secure source of water. So back in 2001, we started looking at using atmospheric water generation because the problem in Africa and the deaths regarding water-related illnesses is huge.
Let's talk about Africa because it does have serious problems. I know the orphanage I help in Kenya, the girls were walking 2 miles to the river for water. They really need water. And wells are not always the solution because there's not always water in the ground that they can easily access. So as you say, there's a lot of waterborne disease in Africa. You have that project in Cameroon.
That's correct. You're exactly right. We actually worked with World Vision to start this program about 8 years ago, and they were having problems. Like you said, you drill this well, you don't know if water's there, but here's the other thing. The other biggest problem in Africa is sanitation. So if you're drilling in close proximity to where the villages are, there is huge sanitation issues. So now you may be drilling into water sources that are highly contaminated and actually causing some of these waterborne diseases. So it makes sense then to not look at groundwater, but to be able to look at atmospheric water generation when you're starting with the purest water. Now, the issues there is we need electric to run our machine, and through solar being much more efficient, as you know, when we started in this, panels were so inefficient in trying to create the electricity that's necessary. Well, that has changed, and the panels are now, almost 90 to 94% efficient, and the battery technology from the old lead batteries, heavy lead batteries, to the lithium ion, thanks to Mr. Musk. It's not a car company, it's a technology company, the Teslas, but we now are able to couple our technology with the solar technology, and we're able to now take a village where the women walk exactly like you said, 4.2 kilometers to the river now to get their water, but the problem is right upriver, people are washing their clothes or they're using it for the restroom or whatever, and when we went out there to look at a 7-year-old whose 15-year-old brother passed away from a waterborne disease, he looks and says, "Are you going to help us?"
I'm glad you are helping everywhere in the world, and even here in the United States, because you have worked with the Amy Grant and Vince Gill and Barefoot Republic Camp in Franklin, Tennessee, where you've supplied all the water for the past 8 years and have upgraded the system to 500 gallons of storage just last year at the camp. It's important to do it everywhere.
Yeah, and again, each location, you think Franklin, Tennessee, and the beautiful mountains of Tennessee, well, that's great, but they have sulfur water. So it might not be horrible to drink, but no one wants to drink water that smells like rotten eggs. So all of the hills and mountains in Franklin, Tennessee, it's sulfur water in the aquifers. So Amy, 8 years ago, decided to donate her family farm, and now obviously she's married with Vince Gill, to Barefoot Republic Camp to provide summer camp to those less fortunate, where 62% of the kids that go to the camp receive scholarships. They believe it's important to have all economic levels all together at a summer camp to enhance the experience. But Amy again looked and said, "I just wanted to donate my farm. I didn't realize there were all these regulations, but Williamson County says that you have to have a gallon of water per person every day on hand in order to get the permit." So 8 years ago, she was using our home and office unit for herself, and she called me up and said, "They just said I need all this water, and we don't have the budget to bring in bottled water every day, and I don't have the people to do it. But your machines, my small machine only makes 10, 12 gallons a day." And we had one of our commercial machines, we had 2 of them that was supposed to go to a mine in Panama, and they changed ownership, and the new owner said they only wanted 1. I said, "Amy, I got one here." The customer customer just said that they weren't going to purchase it. She's like, how quickly can you have it out there? So that 8 years ago, that started our journey, and it was on the side of a barn, and now she's built a whole water hub of cherry wood. It's not only providing the machines and the water, but our staff goes down there and disperses the water and volunteers for the camp. So it's really just such a wonderful, wonderful experience all the way around, and seeing all of these people who love Amy and what she does with her message through music, and Vince as well, to be able to all come together in the month of June, look at how together we're providing a really awesome experience for kids that might not ever be able to go to summer camp, which is what Tommy Rhodes, who's the CEO of Barefoot, that was his goal, because he never got the opportunity to go to summer camp, and he saw all these kids, and he said, when I grow up, I want to make sure all kids get to go to summer camp. It really just touches the heart, and to be a part of that, there's nothing better than serving like that. We are a for-profit company, so we do have to make money, but we love being involved in doing effective charity, not just giving the water in Maka, but providing programs. So you're now giving these ladies 4 or 5 hours a day back. How are you going to fill it? Well, you want to fill it with educational programs so they can teach their kids. You want to teach them about solar, so they now have skills to go out. We talk about the old Chinese proverb, if someone's hungry, you give them a fish they eat for a day, but if you teach them the fish, they're going to eat for a lifetime, and that's what we're trying to do with effective charity and effective programs, and building the team that can provide all of these different services to not only fulfill their physical needs, but also their spiritual and their mental needs as well.
I'm excited to hear the profit world connecting with the nonprofit world and everybody trying to help each other out. Does this technology require new regulations, or do we have enough laws on the books to have you be able to make water where we need it?
There is a fear that regulation will say that you can't capture water from the air. I don't know why they would want to do that. There are powerful companies that are making tons of money on bottled water, but concern for how we operate, you think about every air conditioner, it's pulling water out of the air too. Look at the condensation line. So this is tapping into an untapped source that provides the purest water.
When I interview companies with new technologies, I'm thrilled that they are trying to solve an ecological issue. But I also want to be sure that the company is being operated sustainably. Is your manufacturing process doing so in such a way that it's not polluting the water, the air? Is it using recycled materials? How sustainable is the total operation?
Our operation is keeping an eye on the environmental concerns, just limiting the carbon footprint by having a made in the USA product. So it's not assembled in the US, it's made where over 80% of our component parts are made in the USA. So that alone lowers the carbon footprint. And yes, all of our materials are certified for being used with water, and we have no waste where it's going back out into the environment. It is a assembly line of putting together component parts.
How many places can we find this kind of technology with your company or similar companies?
There's a market research that's saying that the atmospheric water generator business is a $300 million industry now. There's 4 different market evaluators that have put out reports. So the technology is really growing. There's a company out of Israel called WaterGen that brought a lot of eyes to this technology, because obviously Israel is very high-tech when it comes to water technologies.
Thank you so very much for your good work. Thank you for being my guest.
It's a pleasure, and as I said, you were involved in an environmental movement before it was cool to do it. You saw the need all the way back when you started Earth Day in California engineer way back in 1970, and that's someone who's doing it because they know what's necessary. And so to be interviewed by someone who had that vision, it's an honor, and I really appreciate you taking the time to let me discuss a new way of providing the best water to those in need.
Thank you so very much, and I'm thrilled to see new technologies being developed to solve the many problems that we have on this planet and to protect the earth. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have been speaking with Jeffrey Szur. He is the Chief Operating Officer with Altitude Water. I'm Nancy Pearlman. Thank you very much for joining us, and do tune in again next week.
If you would like free information about these environmental issues, go to www.ecoprojects.org or call 310-559-9160. Environmental Directions with your host, Nancy Pearlman, is a community affairs program of the nonprofit organization Educational Communications and this station.